And I also remember once I was sitting in the car and my Japanese colleagues were talking in Japanese and they said something. I understood what they said. So in response, I said something in English. And then my boss looked back at me. I was sitting on the back and he said, "You have become dangerous. Now you understand." In startups, you have to absolutely go at it humble. You don't know many things. You think you know, and that's why you feel, oh my gosh, I can do it. But gosh, compared to what you don't know, you absolutely know nothing. Do you want me to tell you about the bads?
I would love that. Hello everyone, my name is Ali. I'm the CEO of Al-Burraq Technologies. Today we have another tech star, Leila, and this podcast is presented to you from the channel of Techstar Magazine. Hello Leila, how are you?
Thank you, Ali. Very nice to be with you. And hello to everyone who is listening and watching. Happy to introduce myself. Sure. My name is Leila Bahreinian. By background, I'm a mechanical engineer. And after a few years as a pure mechanical engineer, I have been working in medical devices, started in R&D for a few years, and then moved to marketing, product management, and business management since 2010. Actually, since 2007. And have been working in corporate America, but also several startups, joint ventures, global startups, and so on and so forth. Where else do you want me to focus on right now?
Let me tell you where you need to focus on, because you are a champion of medical devices. So you need to tell us more about that, your journey in that, so that we can dig deep into that and how these things are changed over the time, right?
Sure. Well, I don't consider myself a champion. That's very kind of you to say that. So my passion has always been medical devices. Since I decided that I wanted to pursue a profession, I come from a dentist background. So obviously my parents wanted me to become a dentist. That was the narrative when I was in high school. However, my passion was physics, in addition to literature. But physics in what was available to me in high school. So I decided if I wanted to become a dentist, it would be an orthodontist who is going to work on arrays and directions and forces. But I could convince my parents that I wanted to pursue engineering instead. Engineering gave me a very interesting mental structure, if you would. That's, I think, how I would describe engineers. We solve problems. I don't look for problems, but if they come my way, I try to look at them objectively. As a mechanical engineer, I don't know if that's the case with all other engineers. I certainly don't feel like it in some specific engineers, and we can talk about it later, but in mechanical engineering, many times you don't have all the data. So you have to speculate, you have to estimate, you have to guess, you have to take risk and go forward with what you know and make the best design and make the best solution that you can. So applying that to anything was possible, including medical devices. So I decided mechanical engineer would be the mother of the engineering that I was after. And that was exactly the case. After finishing my bachelor's in Isfahan University of Technology back in Iran, I moved to Toronto and pursued my master's degree at University of Toronto. Fantastic experience. I really, for the first time, I suppose, in my life, I enjoyed studying. It was honestly, because there was relationship actually between what you studied and what you got examined on. That was not the case at Isfahan University of Technology or in National Organization for Developing Exceptional Talents, which was the high school I went to. They would teach you something and examine you on something totally higher. Anyways,
that makes sense. That is making a lot of sense because all of the students face that in their journey.
Yeah. I could feel that you understand me. So I'm glad that I see the smile on your face. So anyways, after mechanical engineering for a few years, as I mentioned, I tried to work in as a pure mechanical engineer with overalls and hard hats and steel-toed boots, going into different plants and different manufacturing sites, dealing with technicians and engineers, and a lot also with regulators who would make sure that everything is working properly. So that was really what I focused on. And I think that helped me in getting into medical devices because I understood quality. I cared about understanding risk and mediating it to the extent possible. So now that you're dealing with human life, the quality is not something that you can scrutinize at all. So I was very keen about it. And also I knew a little bit about nitinol, which is the alloy that is not linear. And we need that a lot in human applications, in human body application, because you can cause it behave certain way in room temperature and certain way in body temperature. That got me into Boston Scientific to help develop stents and flow diverters. Fantastic experience. Starting in a big company was very, very good for me, and I can come back to it. I don't want to go into details on everything. So point is, after 4 years in mechanical engineering, moved to medical devices. Mind you, I was in Toronto, and now I moved to the Bay Area. And Bay Area is the mecca for medical devices. So I was where I had to be, thankfully. And many other mechanical engineering positions approached me, and I pushed back until I found the right position with medical devices, which was this R&D engineering position with Boston Scientific. Then after a few years, I decided to move to marketing. Some people call it the dark side. I don't believe so. I think it's very, very important to be able to position your solution into the market. You can have the best solution, but if you don't bring awareness, if you don't bring positioning and differentiation for it, you cannot really bring it to the patients, because that's essentially, in the end of the day, what I care about, to help with patients' care, what all of us care about in medical devices. So I really took a risk, and my management also took a risk on me. fact of the matter, and I am grateful.
Worth it.
Pardon?
I'm saying it was worth it.
You have to say it again.
I am saying it was worth it.
It was worth it. Absolutely. I believe so. Actually, I had to accept a demotion when I moved from R&D to product management. However, after a year, I became the product manager of the year, something like that. So it was a very intense but very exciting journey. So after that, after a few years, after 7 years total in stroke with Boston Scientific, and then Stryker acquired us 7 years, I moved on to a joint venture between two Japanese companies who were incepting their presence in the US as their essentially VP of the US operations and strategy in robotic assisted surgical tools. So 5 years with RAS, robotic assisted surgery. And then for a short period, I tipped my toe into my own startup, utilizing, essentially bringing digital health and management into supply chain management. That was short-lived, but abound with experience and lessons. And then after that, I got invited to help another startup in preoperative planning and intraoperative guidance in total knee replacement. A very interesting, very exciting, very talented team. So I really enjoyed working with them as their CEO and turning their plans from R&D based to revenue based, and they are still continuing. We got to COVID, fundraising became almost impossible in orthopedics when orthopedics were dealing with COVID patients sometimes, some in some hospitals and somewhere in the world. So it was very difficult to get a hold of them, very difficult to convince patients to come on board with us and accept a new solution. I had to move on, but the company persists and they are still very successful, essentially executing a lot of what I had planned for them back in the day. I went to Novasignal instead in digital health, again, back to stroke. So my happy place. Stroke is personal to me, and we can talk about it later too. And then for about a year now, I am with Genesis, which is a Singapore-based conglomerate of medical devices, very interesting and ambition in their plans. I am helping them as essentially VP of Global Product Strategy with all of their interventional products. So back to stroke, but also coronary and peripheral vasculature. So that has been my journey, starting from R&D engineering to product management to essentially a new business lead, a couple CEO positions, and now actually I am back into a CEO position again, because within this conglomerate, they have acquired several companies, including the one that I am leading right now called 𝗀𝗋. So we are at the growth stage, and the mother company has decided that they are going to have us become provide funding externally. So that's what I am leading, helping with funding for the growth stage. So back to the CEO role for some time.
Right. There are a lot of things. There are a lot of questions in your journey. But first of all, your startup journey. We need to touch that. Tell us about that motivation. And when you closed the company, what were the lessons?
Oh, sure. So startup in general, compared to corporate America, you have to pull, per my experience, and I'm not saying this is global, but that's my understanding, that's my observation, and that's my lived experience, that you have to pull different strengths. Corporate America, there are layers of different sorts of management and leadership. There are very clear milestones, structures, everything is defined. And some people would feel very comfortable in that situation, who might not necessarily feel comfortable in a startup where I started on a Sunday of all days in a week with Medicoroid in an empty office. There was a land of empty.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine very clearly, because we all have done that.
Exactly. So you have to envision everything, even from the layout of the company you're building or helping build, in addition to your strategic plan for the year, for 5 years, what is going to make you viable in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. And within that, there are several other aspects. Regulatory pathways, one of them. Strategic connection with society and key opinion leaders is another one. And you can imagine, I was coming from Boston Scientific, Stryker. Even by introducing myself as so-and-so from Stryker, a report was built with the society. Now I am a nobody in a no-name company. So that was an interesting blow to me, the first conference I went to, that, oh my gosh, I absolutely have no rapport with anyone. So strategically, and I do this a lot, so we can talk about this every time you have a question, I started looking at the list of physicians who were attending, and I started looking at who might answer me. And I started calling them, totally cold calling. Mind you, I found my first paid job cold calling too back in Toronto, but that's another sweet story we can go back to. So
we can keep including those stories so that we do not miss anything.
Sure. Let me finish this, and I go back to
Yeah.
my work with Canvas. Absolutely. So now it's 2014. I am in this new startup. I don't know much about robotic assisted surgery. I know stroke, but not robotics. In soft tissue, abdominal, if you would, area. And then I am going to this conference and I want to take the best out of it. So I started calling physicians one after the other, just saying, hey, this is who I am. And usually you get the voicemails. And one physician, our very beloved Dr. Najat from Stanford, picked up the phone. He returned my call, actually. And he said, do I know you? And I said, no, you don't. But we can meet and we can get to meet each other and know each other. So the night I arrived in back then, the meeting was in Las Vegas. I arrived in Las Vegas. I invited him to dinner and we met, and I had hit the jackpot. He is the father of endoscopy and extending that into robotic surgery. So it was just serendipitously, but with a lot of effort and putting on the thick skin that you're going to hear a lot of no's, going to him. And the rest is history. He introduced me to many other key opinion leaders, and their relationships still continue, even though I'm not with robotic surgery anymore. So that's for that a little bit. Then you mentioned about my own startup. So after 5 years in robotic assisted surgery and how I had prepared the company to move forward in their commercialization and operations in the US, I felt my mission there was coming to a plateau, if not declining. So I left the team gliding while the next stage was coming. That was not much I could help with. We had to wait for a few things to come down from Japan. So I decided, and mind you, I was actually talking on the back with a few like-minded, innovative, interesting people who we had met over LinkedIn, believe it or not. But we started having coffees and started chit-chatting about ideas. When I was at University of Toronto, I had a friend who told me that he has a notebook, and every time he has an idea, he writes it down. And I loved that, like back in 2001. And that's what I had started doing. So I have a notebook that I write ideas in, and those ideas can be as a specific catheter, for example, for a specific, application. I don't have many of those. But when I became a mother, I had a lot of other innovative ideas that, why don't we have this? Why can't I do this when I am strolling my stroller, for example, or when I am in the car? Why won't be able to do this and that with my car seat? So there's a lot of safety measures about that, as you can imagine, when you're dealing with babies. But still, those ideas are in my notebook, still there. I haven't pursued any of them as a patent. But point is that mine was working. And I had these other very interesting, innovative, motivated young people who would be interested in ideation. So over coffee, over phone calls, on drive to work and home, we were chatting, and something came to fruition at one point that we thought, this is something we can pursue, and we need a CEO who would be full-time on it. I was the one who decided to do that, given the stage I was with Medicoroid. I talked with my husband. I said, what's my run rate? Because I am not going to be able to bring any sustenance into the house for a while. How long can we go doing that? Mind you, we have a family and all the baggage that comes with the golden chains in the US. So we did a quick calculation. I knew my run rate home front, and we started working on it, putting together the story, which, is the most important thing when you incept a startup. You should have a convincing story that is going to impact and impress people. And started,
it makes sense.
Yeah. And started networking for fundraising and meeting with total strangers over coffee or at meetings or whatnot. And got a lot of good tidbits here and there. I tried to start with the friendlier ones. I didn't want to burn my cards with high top ones that would hear me, and a very rookie mistake would prevent me from being able to fundraise with them. So I started with those who actually were maybe a couple steps further from me, but were experienced, seasoned, and kind and open to give me feedback. And you find a lot of those, by the way. There are many kind and open people out there who would be willing to give you an hour over coffee and just help you, flat help you. And remember,
I've seen that. And especially in the Bay Area, you met a lot of people who will sit with you, who will work on your idea and refine it. And they help a lot. I've seen this thing.
Yes, absolutely. And then you pay it forward. It's going to become your turn too, to hold somebody's hand and spend that hour with them and give them everything you can to help them not make the same mistakes you did and beyond, actually. So I have been trying to do that too. Thankfully, people do contact me for that. And I am usually very open and very honored even when people contact me. So
I need to stop you.
Sure.
Hello, everyone. You need to contact her if you need any kind of she has openly invited you to get any advice.
Sorry, say it again.
I'm saying you have openly invited people. You have openly invited people to get advice from you. So everyone who is watching this needs to contact you and he needs to get advice from you.
Yeah, if you can find me and if you have an interesting story for me to capture my time and attention, absolutely. My time and attention will be with you, for sure.
We will share your LinkedIn.
Especially if you are a lady, and especially if you're in medical devices, for sure. I prioritize you, I tell you.
That is so nice of you.
Yeah. I believe I had other interviews, and I believe we are in debt to lady leaders before us. They paved the way for us. They made it possible for us to be where we are. So I recognize that. I salute them, and I know my responsibility in return. So absolutely, where I can.
That's great.
Absolutely.
So in this discussion, you have said that you have told everything about your journey. Someone who is coming from a background of working in an enterprise, and then they start working on their startup. And as you said, that is an entirely different environment, right? You have no resources and you have to work more than 8-9 hours, right? And how did you handle that thing?
It's interesting. When you're at the thick of it, you don't even think about it. You do what is needed to be done. You don't even think about how many hours, how many new learnings for you. I tell you, for example, one thing. This was very interesting, and this is a soft skill part of it, but very real and very important. As a mechanical engineer, Japan is the god in design and in quality. That's at least how I grew up in Isfahan University of Technology, looking up into Japan and wanting to be part of that fantastic engineering skill and engineering pathway, essentially. So now it's 2014, and a Japanese joint venture gave me the honor to help them with developing their startup in the US from scratch, being a no-name, as I mentioned, back in the day. And we started with 9 people in Japan and 3 people in the US. So very, very young, very, very new. And what got me by surprise at the beginning was we would sit down and meet, and we would say, yes, yes, yes. And then we would meet again on the same topic. So after 2, 3 repetition of similar kinds of meetings, I was like, something doesn't add up. This is not this. Why are we meeting to meet again, to discuss the same thing? Something is amiss here, and I didn't know what it was. So what I started doing, Ali, was recognizing that I don't understand the culture. I started buying books on how to do business with Japan, with authors who were Japanese, and if they were in English, and with authors who were American, working with Japanese. I also started reading novels, Japanese novels, just to understand the culture a little bit more deeply. I started watching Japanese movies, and I started studying Japanese. And I got it to only be able to talk about pleasantries, and I don't know how to read at all the alphabet. However, at least if I was lost in the middle of Kobe with my broken Japanese and a little bit of English, a little bit of French, maybe I could find my way again. And I did. It did happen. At one point, I was in the middle of Kobe. I got out of, first of all, I was well versed now with all the communication pathways that I could ride the metro by myself. And now I got up the metro, and I am in a intersection with 7 different streets coming into that intersections, and I don't know where I have to go to meet whom I was going to meet. And I started talking in Japanese to people. They started talking in English with them. They didn't want to talk to me. I started a little bit in Japanese. Some people stopped, but we couldn't continue the conversation. So a guy stopped by. He spoke French and Japanese. I spoke a little bit French and a little bit Japanese. So between him and me and another Japanese fellow, I found my way. So, and I also remember once I was sitting in the car and my Japanese colleagues were talking in Japanese, and they said something. I mean, they were talking about something, and I understood what they said. So in response, I said something in English, and then my boss looked back at me. I was sitting on the back, and he said, "You have become dangerous. Now you understand." And I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I didn't tell you, so I knew everything you're saying behind my back. Joking aside. So
yeah. But that is an amazing thing, right? Because there was a full stop. You saw the red light, right? And then you turned it green. So you made your way.
Yes.
And that is so inspiring.
Thank you. That's the thing, though, Ali, in startups. You have to absolutely go at it humble. You don't know many things. You think you know, and that's why you feel, oh my gosh, I can do it. But gosh, compared to what you don't know, you absolutely know nothing. And if you stay attached to what you know, you are going to feel disheartened very quickly. So it's very important for all of us to go at it open-hearted. And that knowledge is softer skills, people skills, cultural skills, or cultural knowledge, cultural willingness to get integrated to the system, and also technical, and also fundraising, which is a totally different skill by itself, and storytelling.
I'm getting impressed from each of your answers. You're getting answers and I'm blown away.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's talk about the team building. Team building is the most important thing in a startup, right? In a startup, in a company, wherever you are working, team building is a very important factor. So what do you think about that, diversity in a team, and how a team should be built?
Sure. I tell you about my experience, and thankfully, I have almost 10 years in startup leadership now. Almost, it's 9 years. And who I was, how I was leading has been evolving a lot. And it's not only because I was focused on leadership, I was honestly focused on myself. I have been working on myself as a human being. What is it that I want from life, and where I am with regards to that? So that has been a very conscious and very deliberate act at my end, working on my psyche, working on my soul, and so on and so forth, which immediately got translated to my leadership. The bookish responses are look into your strength and hire harmoniously to your parts of not so much of a strength. So having the R&D background, knowing a lot about quality, knowing a lot about regulatory, and then marketing and product management, I knew enough about most things that are needed in a medical device. Now I needed people who would be very specialized in specific parts of R&D, specific parts of product management, specific parts of regulatory and quality, and so on and so forth, and clinical. Clinical is where I have the least hands-on experience. So that was my motto at the beginning. Fitting within the team was very important. I learned later that sometimes you go to interviews and you just interview with your manager and up. However, I always made a point to have me meet the people, interview people, and all the colleagues and all the employees as well, all the direct reports. So being able to balance everything out. And in startups, you don't have layers after layers, but these nuances matter still. So harmony within the team, harmony between me and the person and their skill set. And in the end, both of our willingness to want to learn from each other. So I should have enough respect for the person to want to learn from them, and they should have enough respect and curiosity to want to learn from me. So that has been my look into that. If anything, that is the part that I am very proud of. The teams I have built in the past, the people I have built up relationship as manager-employee, if you would, are they make me proud. They make me happy. Thinking about them and where they are now make me very, very happy. And I started hiring actually back in 𝗀ecie. So management role for me goes beyond 10 years now. And absolutely marvel in watching where they started and where they are now. And I know all of them are going to go great places. So to sum up, recognizing the harmony and the willingness and the connection between the hearts, if I may say so, because the hard skills, one way or the other, it's the soft skill, it's the harmony. And I throw one more word here, Ali, which I have been going back to a lot, recognizing that there is a collective wisdom among the team. And not recognizing that prevents the team from excelling. However, when you have people who see and seek that collective wisdom, you're set.
And it seems like that you're a very good boss.
You should ask my employees. I don't know.
For that, we'll have to send an email to them. Give us anonymous response.
I'll give you some names. Some would be better than others. Well, I have also inherited teams, and that's a totally different skill and situation to deal with.
Okay, now we're going to move toward another thing, right?
Sure.
Being a female CEO, how is it like? What kind of challenges do you face? What benefits do you have being a female CEO and things like that?
You know, it's very interesting to think about. Honestly, I feel even within the past 9-10 years, things have improved to a huge degree. For example, in some cultures, honestly, if you're very honest and direct about it, gender do matter and age matter too. So I found myself in a challenging situation being a younger female leader. However, as we go forward, especially in medical devices, No, I mean, I'm not saying it's all rosy and sunshine for ladies in medical devices, but it's better compared to some other industries for female leaders. There is several successful female leaders to look up to. Yes, there are exceptions here and there too, like everything else. And lo and behold, when you're a lady and make a mistake, the whole ladyhood becomes under question. When you're a man and make a mistake, it's only the individual who made a mistake. So you have to recognize that still, unfortunately, you carry the weight of the whole gender when you come at it as a minority. And it's not only being a female necessarily, also being an immigrant. You're carrying the whole weight of all the immigrants who come in this country and try to build the American dream, but more importantly, to build something that is going to last behind them and help humankind, help the patients. I better put my pen aside without making noises. So that's the fact. When any sorts of minority, and I don't want to use that softly, or mainstream minority, fact of the matter is you're going to be in rooms that you're the only female. You are going to be in presentations that you are the only immigrant or the younger person in the room. Those are challenging. However, how I have learned to not necessarily overcome them, but make them a non-issue has been going at it with my soul. So yes, you care about how you appear, because want it or not, we are human, and we do judge. As soon as we see something, brain starts calculating. This is a blah blah, and if this is a female, then blah blah. There are some pre-structured conditions in your mind, want it or not. First of all, recognize that all of us have these biases, and we better be aware of them. And then go at it as a soul and observe them as a soul too. Why would somebody oppose you just because of your gender? Actually have some compassion with them. Fact of the matter is, we are adding to the competition. If there was only 50% of the population in the competition, it would be easier than when 100% of the population is within the competition pool. So I see that, I recognize that. I'm sorry for you if you feel threatened with the new competition that is coming at you. And you have been behaving like that for 20, 30, 40 years. And now the new generation of leaders are coming, and startup inceptors and founders are coming who are not necessarily within the bracket of your experience. Yes, I feel you. It must be very threatening and scary. And in reaction, you are reacting how you're reacting. But let's go past that, because we are all grown up. We are all mature. And in the end of the day, if we cannot work with each other, let's call it a day, because your investors, if and when they become part of your board of director, it's kind of like a short-term marriage. And not all of us are fit for each other. That's very clear. So we need people who believe in us, who hopefully look at us as souls too. But even if not, at least believe in us, at least are in it with us. And it goes actually both to the board, but also to the employees. Because all of us are taking risks. That's synonymous to startup risk. It's not easy. It's not easy on hearts. Many hearts prefer not to do that, and many hearts never pursue startups. But anyways, coming back to your question, the challenge is real. I believe it is becoming better and better. I believe the next generation who are just graduating right now have a better paved way ahead of them. I'm not diminishing the challenges they still are going to have. And frankly, it's not only for, I don't believe it's only for lady graduates. It's also for young men graduating right now. that they still have to prove themselves to the older generation. And one thing that I have been observing with them is that they have grown up a little bit more balanced in their view of different genders. So altogether, they support each other a little bit more compared to maybe my male classmates. I'm not saying they didn't support me. I didn't ever have the chance to work with them or be in the same environment with them, because as soon as I graduated with my bachelor's, I moved outside the country. However, looking back and talking with my other friends and colleagues from the past, I don't feel it is as dire a situation as it was back 20 some years ago. Anyways, I hope I answered your question. If you have a specific question, because I know female leadership is something.
What you're saying is right. Things are changing over the past years, right? And things are getting easier. But these things are realities. What advice would you give to the females or the immigrants, or you can say minorities, right, who are coming into the field and they face this politics or habits of trying to pull them down? What advice would you give them?
I think at least two things for sure, and maybe a third one will come to my heart too. Number one, I think at least two things for sure, and maybe a third one will come to my heart too. Number one, be as prepared as you can. Recognize that you are going to get muddied. You are going to get turned down. You are going to receive unwanted and unprofessional feedback or comments. Be prepared for it. Don't be surprised and don't be disheartened by it. When you're prepared for it, you can handle it better. Number two, come whole. Come as you are. You are fine. It doesn't matter. Not only it doesn't matter, it's a blessing if you are an immigrant in this country or if you are a female leader. You have done a lot to be where you are already. You don't have to prove yourself anymore. The fact that you left your homeland and learned another language and made the trip and opened your suitcases in another country that you didn't even know where to go buy a loaf of bread, and now you are coming asking for funding or raising money or building teams, kudos to you already. Don't assume that you have to prove yourself any further than that. And anybody who sees that is whom you want to work with. Anybody who doesn't see that is not necessarily who you want to work with. Don't waste your time with those people. They exist, but way more honest and fair people exist in my experience. So don't be challenged by them. So be prepared, come whole. And I go back to the fact that keep your heart open to learning. Even if somebody is challenging you as an immigrant and as a female, there is a learning for you in that. Hear it. Don't dismiss everything people say just because they are machos or because they are, I don't know, whatever. There is a reason. Every time you meet someone, there is a reason they got in your path. Be grateful. Be open and grateful for what they have to say, even if it hurts your heart a little bit. Don't stay in that situation. I'm not saying protect your heart for sure. However, don't dismiss it either. Don't dismiss it fully. Learn from it. Next time, when you are going to be in a similar situation, you are going to feel much more prepared and equipped to move forward. Oh, and a fourth one, don't be a perfectionist.
Oh,
we tend to be perfectionists. We pursued, I don't know, engineering or business, and then we were so ambitious to decide to go to startups or even incept our own startup, and now we are fundraising and we have a story. So maybe at some level we become a perfectionist and we use it as a good trait, as a good adjective for ourselves. However, being a perfectionist makes you very vulnerable to mistakes, but mistakes are part of life. So I loved this parenting advice that some father every night would ask their kids, what mistake did you make today? Because if you don't make mistakes, You didn't learn. That's the background to that question. So what mistake did I make today? What am I going to do about it next? And that goes into fundraising. That goes into handling all male, sometimes very pessimistic panels that you have to deal with. That goes into hearing no about your pitch or about your presentation. And by no means do I mean when they say jump, ask how high. No, recognize that you have spent the time on your pitch or on your story, on yourself. However, when you receive a feedback, even the negative, the not very pleasant ones, sit down with them a little bit in a calm situation. When you feel calm and content, don't brush it away. It'll come back to you. Lessons of life, to my experience, always come back to you until you learn them. So learn from them so they don't come back to you, but you elevate yourself after that. So don't be a perfectionist. Be not only humble, but willing to do mistakes. And be proud of making mistakes because you learned something.
What you are saying, and three answer of the question is so perfect. Being a founder and a CEO, I can stamp on that everything you said is right.
Great. I'm happy to hear that.
Okay, now the important thing. Because the world is changing, knowledge is increasing, right? And now we have already moved towards the AI age, right? And you are working in medical devices. How do you see your field changing according to the AI?
Sure. Yes, absolutely. It's very interesting where we were with AI. I wouldn't even say 5 years ago is a world away from where we are today.
Yes.
Now, it's jarringly interesting, actually. So it's already here. There's no way around it. Having smart devices that would give you feedback, give the physician feedback and give the patient feedback so they can prevent the next adverse event is already here. As I mentioned, preoperative planning and intraoperative guidances are all through AI and personalized. That's another beautiful thing. I had a one of the blood items in my blood panel. I am the good judge for that, and so is AI. Now, I am keen about it. Not everybody is keen about their blood panel. So when you have AI behind it, it'll personalize that. Leila, given everything I know about you, this is the right level for you, or no, you're too low, or no, you're too high, and this is what you should do about it. So having AI help you with supplementing human knowledge and personalizing care to the patient is, I think, the right way of utilizing AI, the blessed way of utilizing AI, and it's already happening. I actually am advising a couple startups utilizing AI mainly on the administrative side and healthcare reports part of things, because in the US we have a different healthcare report management, for example, compared to Europe and compared to Middle East or Far East and so on and so forth. So it's very localized, actually, issue right now, not issue, fact. And AI can help facilitate that. And I mentioned the smart devices, for example, within stroke that we have been talking about. Are there ways that we can predict it long enough that we can prevent it? Because usually from the onset of stroke to actual stroke, there is not much time. And time is brain. And when brain cells are dead, unfortunately, they are, to a huge degree, irreversible, if not flat, irreversible. Losing memory, losing physical motor activities are real with stroke. So are there ways that we can look at Leila's life and information, look at her ancestors and decide that, Leila, you are going to experience, God forbid, stroke in so and so age, and this is what we recommend for you, or look for these symptoms, or look for these blood panel information, whatever it's going to be. And then if, again, God forbid, but there's a stent or some sort of implant inside me, can it be smart to give feedback to some sort of program that has artificial intelligence behind it to prevent and predict adverse events for me? So these are all real. It's already happening. Very, very interesting activities are happening. I tell you, like everything else, I was talking with an HR manager 12, 13 years ago. She told me every trait anybody has a balcony and has a basement. Not everything is all good. Even, for example, being positive. You think positivity is a good thing, but there are some basement-related attributes around it. So same goes with AI in medical devices. Can we go too far with it? Can we get to the extent that we lose compassion, we lose free will because we have something smart implanted in our bodies? I am sensitive about it, and I hope the society as a whole would remain sensitive about it. Continue with your innovation, but don't be blind to the not so human parts of the AI. Utilize it really for patient care.
Do you think that is going to happen? Like the world is talking about that we should hold the AI innovations for some time because it is moving toward anti-human facts, right? So do you think this can happen? I think companies won't stop working on the AI and they will keep moving forward. What do you think about that?
This is a very personal feedback, I tell you. And as I mentioned, I am a dynamic person. Everybody is, but I know I am a dynamic person. You may ask me in 5 years and I have a different answer. So with that preface, yes, I believe AI will continue. There are technocrats who are very excited about it and very interested in it. There are capitalists who would bear fruit from it. However, I go back to the collective wisdom. Maybe I am too optimistic, but I believe in humanity. I believe that the collective wisdom in human race will balance itself. I don't believe it is the end of the world and Terminator and machines are going to take over. I am still hopeful. I think the future generation specifically is well immersed in it, but also very well aware. We have to remember to teach them history. We have to remember to teach them about all the adversities that we humankind have imposed on each other. I believe if we do that, and as we are doing it, I think we are already doing it, I believe it will balance itself out. I am hopeful.
Right. You are optimistic.
I am.
Because we are providing staff augmentation and we're providing software engineers all over the world remotely. So I have to talk about it. What do you think about remote resource? What do you think about remote jobs? To be very precise.
I am one of the people who have experienced it before and after COVID. So let me start with a statement and then back it up with some real life examples.
Both pros and cons.
Absolutely.
Of remote work, right? And honest. Don't be political.
I think I have been nothing but honest so far, Ali.
Yes. I completely stamped that earlier.
Good. I'm glad we are on the same page about it. I believe there is certain positions that can happen remote. And there are certain positions and times that cannot happen remote. That is my lived experience so far. As a mother, this is, I think, the second time I'm mentioning it, I am a mother. And when I was younger, with a younger child, I really wished I could have a career and oversight my child. I don't believe that you can mother and work at the same time. Actually, I know you can't, especially with a baby. With grown children, that's a different story. But with a baby, don't kid yourself. Babies need attention. But if I have a nanny or if I have a grandmother here and I want to feel my baby, I want to be with my baby, which is what you care about as a new mother, while working remotely, I would take that any day and any time. And I have actually done it. So I can tell you more. So there are reasons, depending on your position, that you want and you can work remotely. There are reasons, again, depending on your role, but also the position within the company, that remote is not going to work. Examples: when there is new teams, it's very difficult to build reports remotely. People have done it. We all had to do it during COVID. I started my previous job within COVID. All of my interviews were over Zoom. And then I had to go to my office, I don't know, a few days every few weeks. We were medical devices, we were exempt, so we were the ones who actually went to the office. But does everybody need to be there? No. What we did, I feel, during COVID was to supplement that with too many meetings. That is also counterintuitive, I believe. So I'm just giving examples, but let me just try and centralize it. It really depends on your job, and it really depends on your team structure and culture. Can you cultivate the culture? Yes. Should you cultivate the culture? Depends on the previous two. What is your team structure and what is your role? Some roles cannot be. If you're a hands-on technician in the lab, how can you work remote? If you are a inspector who has to go to places and look at quality of activities, or if you're on manufacturing, you cannot work remote. However, if you're punching numbers, if you're working on strategy, if you're working on writing reports and developing presentation and stories, not only you can work, sometimes you better work remote because you need a confined area without distractions to sit down and work. Now, you may be able to provide that for yourself at work if you have an office or if you have a meeting room that you can close the door. But people are going to find you and emails are going to find you always. So you have to be very disciplined if you are going to work remote. You have to be very clear with your team and with your higher-ups that what you're doing when you're remote and how to find you and why not to find you. Like sometimes I tell my kids, for example, door is closed and unless something is in fire, you're not going to open this door. So you have to give the same directive sometimes to your team that I am remote, I am working on whatever, and I don't want to know unless something is burning. Everything else can wait. So you have to have the discipline, you have to have the wisdom to work like so. In general, I feel it's a blessing if where management has accepted it. It is a blessing because, again, collective wisdom. I believe, yes, there are people who are lazy. There are people who are going to take advantage of it and misuse it. But in general, I have seen people to actually utilize it as a means to live and work. And I deliberately don't use balance because I don't believe in balance. Balance is not something to be found in this world, but taking care of some life matters while taking care of work, or focus work, or enable specific talents to continue working. These are the positions for remote work, in my opinion.
One thing we have missed is you being a mother and you were working as well in that time. So we need to talk about that balance. I know you have said balance is not something you believe in, right? But we need to talk about that. How was that experience?
Sure. Happy to tell you. So I have very sad stories about it that you may find in one of my interviews on Instagram. Actually, I was interviewed by a lady who interviewed lady leaders. And I tell you very briefly, that is the first day I left my son at the daycare to go back to work. Mind you, I was working in Toronto. We had 12 years of maternity leave. Then in the middle, we decided to move to the Bay Area. Now I have a 3-month young. After 3 months, moms go back to work. I was not ready to go back to work. And I was a young mother and a new immigrant again. Moving from Canada to the US, yes, you don't have to learn a new language, but everything else is new still. So I decided I'll continue staying home for 12 months. That was my plan, so I would continue. And after that, I started looking for work. So he's now 16 months young that I decide to go back to work. And I feel he's old enough to take care of himself. He's saying a few words here and there. He walks. So it's okay. He can go to daycare. I found a fantastic daycare for him. And the day I went there and left him in the care of the caregiver there, and him being him, he took the embrace of the caregiver. Tears are rolling down his cheeks, and he's blowing kisses to me. And if heartbreak has a sound, I heard it that day. I went to my car, I sat down and I cried. And I called my husband and I said, I am not dropping off my son anymore. I will leave early in the morning. You drop him off, I pick him up. And that's what we did. That's what we did. My son is 17 years young now, and that's what we have been doing for the past 17 with all kids, that he is the one who drops them off. He's always more flexible to start later. He's in high tech, so he can go at 9:30. And I was the one who picked them up at as early as 2:30 at one point when I was leading Medicaroid, because it was my own team. I started at 5 in the morning, and by 8:30, when my team was trickling in, I was done with the day. I was very efficient, very focused, working on everything I needed to work. And then I would roll through until 2:30, 3:30, then pick them up, and then come home until my evening meetings in Japan would start after 5 p.m. And now we are all home and everything is taken care of. And mind you, a good nanny is a heaven sent. So I was not ready for a nanny when I had my firstborn, but with my secondborn, I had a nanny, and that was a blessing. I went back to work with my secondborn after 3 months, but I was working mainly from home, but I killed myself. I was working from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. easily every day because I felt there is some resistance. So I had to prove myself. This is where I'm telling you, don't feel that you have to prove yourself, because those who believe in you will continue believing in you. And those who don't believe in you, kill yourself, and they are not going to believe in you. So on the hindsight, I wouldn't do it again, but I did work a lot. But at least my nanny was there. If I needed to nurse my baby, I was doing it myself for most of the days that I was working from home. And the other thing that I have been doing is, and I know it's not for everyone, I have girlfriends who don't believe in this, but I believe in quality of the time you spend with your kids. Now, when they are really babies, quantity matters too. When they are teenagers, quantity matters too. You just want to be around. You just want to be hovering around. And now, if my son listens to it now, he knows my strategy. That's too bad, but also too good. He's mature enough to understand it. I want to make myself available around, so when things happen, they can come to you and say, hey, mom, what do you think about this and that? And usually they don't come to you deliberately. They want to hide it until it really hits them hard that they decide to come to you and talk to you. Thankfully, all of my kids are well-versed with FaceTime. So they call me anytime, and I usually prioritize that. Not usually, I always prioritize that. So even when I go to a fundraising meeting, I tell them, hey, the reason my cell phone is here is because I have kids at home. If they called, I'll pick it up. They or my nanny, I'll pick it up. Anybody else, I won't. And people accept it. Be aware of it, make them aware of it, and you will have a good ride with them. So make yourself available. Don't kill yourself to prove yourself to a system that wouldn't believe you. Move on to a system that would believe you. Still, carry the best job you can, and you can. Now, I said balance because there is really no balance here. For those staying-at-home moms, kudos to them. I salute them. Good for them. I can never deliver everything they have been delivering to their kids. The meals I can make, I can fix. I love that American term, fixing dinner, because I have started fixing dinner. Sometimes I don't cook dinner. I just have to open the refrigerator and just pull some things out that has protein, carbohydrate, and fiber. We're good. Doesn't matter if they match. Or all the classes they can take their kids to, or all the observations they can have over classes. Now, nannies are taking my kids to classes. However, I have to deliberately every month make an appointment for myself to go observe my daughter playing piano, or to go observe them playing gymnastic, or go observe them at their debate club, and so on and so forth. So you have to, that's where the soft balance comes into play for me, that I know what I am missing, and I deliberately strategize how to supplement that. So far, I feel my kids still, even though I have a lot of business trips too, by the way, which doesn't sit well with many people, but thankfully we have been managing it. And oh my gosh, I have to loudly and publicly thank my husband too. He has been my partner in crime in all of this. And having the supporting spouse is not only the key, is it all. He has to be in it with you. And it goes both ways, by the way. I'm not only talking about husbands, or all partners have to support each other in their journey, and everything we are doing is for me, for you, for us. I believe that's the motto, and that's what will makes us all together balance it all.
Why are you so good in everything?
I am not, Ali. Do you want me to tell you about the bads?
I would love that.
Oh my goodness. What kind of bads do I want to tell you?
Your choice. You're open.
Oh my gosh, no, I have a lot of bads. Don't be.
Or we might have to call your husband for that.
You can, you may.
He can't bear that.
Yeah, no, he's a good boy.
Right.
But I think I already told you the bad without telling you. When I told you that I am working on myself, what does that mean? If I were all good, I wouldn't be working on myself.
That's not bad.
No, listen, I was a perfectionist. I still am. If I lose sight of it, I am. And what that does to me is it makes me scared. In the end of the day, it makes me scared. And when I am scared, I'm not pulling in my 100%. Instead, I am trying to divert the issue and address the issue and become reactive. And that is not how I want to operate. So I have to rebalance myself to remain objective rather than emotional and subjective. And mind you, I never want to use emotional as a negative thing. I know people use that for women specifically as a negative thing. I believe emotions are part of our totality. We have to be emotional. We all are. Some of us mask it. So that story aside, I have issues with wanting to be liked and feel really, really miserable when I don't feel liked. It is diminishing again over years. And as I am aging, I accept people as they are. And it's okay if they don't like me. That's just how it is. If it is due to my fault, I try to address it. But sometimes it's not due to my fault. They just don't like me for whatever reason they have. And I really seriously worked on that through several workshops and counseling sessions to first of all understand that in myself, that I have the fear of not being liked, and then remedy it. Then we get into spiritual discussions if we we go into that. But let me tell you a story that might be useful to people. One of my bads, one of the things that have been limiting me and hindering me a little bit was my phobia of tunnels.
Okay.
I don't like to be in tunnels. And as soon as I say that, people ask, how about elevators? How about planes? No, I don't have any issue sitting in a plane. I don't have any issue riding elevators. But for some reason, tunnels made me feel suffocated. I couldn't breathe. Literally, I would feel all of my nostril and my air path are truncating and I cannot breathe. Now, we are in Japan, and Japan is full of tunnels. Everywhere you need to go, you have to go through tunnels. So I told my boss, who is a very beloved man, and we still know each other's birthdays, and at least on birthdays and New Year's, we are in touch with each other. So I told him, hey, if we can avoid tunnels, please do. And then he would start talking in Japanese to the driver, and the driver had to think, oh my God, how am I going to avoid the tunnel? That's the way. But okay, so they would turn around, add another 15, 20 minutes to the commute and do it for me. Now, we are in Kobe. We made a trip to our facility outside Kobe. I was there with 7 other key opinion leaders from the US and Europe. That was essentially my initiative that, hey, let's put these in front of our very talented engineers so they hear it firsthand from these people. What are the unmet needs? Do us some prototype evaluation, give us some feedback, give us some strategy even on how to go to US or how to go to Europe. We are coming back from the facility. Everybody is so impressed. I'm sitting down talking with Dr. G in the front of the van. And suddenly I realized that we are in a tunnel. So somebody had forgotten to tell the driver to avoid the tunnel. And I am sitting there and I start really, really panicking and not being able to breathe. So I told Dr. G, hey, I cannot breathe. And he started going very technical with me. Yes, this enzyme is actually released in your bloodstream. So realistically, actually, and factually, your nostrils are shrinking. And I'm like, that's the last thing I want to hear. I thought it's all in my brain. Now you're telling me physically I cannot breathe. What am I going to do? So my heart started pounding. I am really in a very bad shape. I'm sweating. And I want to save face in front of all of these very prominent surgeons. So I just called my boss and I said, hey, I am not feeling well. Do something about it. He said, go to the back of the van and lay down. So I went to the back of the van and I pushed everyone forward. I'm sorry, I have to lay down here. So I went back. I grabbed a jacket from I don't know whom and put it on my face. I said, when we are back in the office, let me know. I don't want to know anything else. So I lay down for, 35, 40 minutes remaining of the trip, and they kept going into tunnels. They were already in a mountainous pathway. And every time I peeked my eyes, we were in the tunnel. That was miserable. I was miserable. And I decided this is not acceptable. I have to do something about it. It's a phobia. It's really affecting my ability to perform. It's really affecting even my reputation. And I'm sure there is a way. There are a bunch of people who go through tunnels and nothing happens to them. So what's wrong with me? I started reading. That's the first thing I usually do. I researched and they gave some tidbits. So next time I am in Kobe, I'm utilizing it. Next time I am in Boston, I love Boston, but I really was miserable going from the Boston airport to the downtown because you have to go through this very long tunnel under the, is it Charles River? Anyways, that was helping some, but not so totally. So it took another couple of years that I was determined to make it work until I found a counselor. And I sat down with her and I said, I have this issue, help me. I'm done with it. I cannot tolerate this anymore. I have to fix it. I'm sure there's a way. And she started coaching me in seeing my fear. All of these eventually come down to fear. It's with regards to phobia. It's with regards to male people not acting very, very honest and just with female leaders and so on and so forth. So she showed me my fear and all the physiological things that are happening in my body, I was aware of them. And she gave me some practices, and the practices were painful. They were as if I was in a tunnel, and I didn't like it, but I had to go through it. So, and every time my heart started pounding, I would feel sweat and I would feel really miserable. But little by little by little, it diminished and diminished and diminished. And just a few months ago, I was in China. I was in Shanghai going to 𝗺𝗲𝗱𝗶, and I had to go through a tunnel. It was under a lake, a very wide lake. And I am in the tunnel, and I am not suffocating. I am not sweating. My heart is completely content. So I took a video of myself in the car inside the tunnel and sent it to my counselor. And I said, I am in debt to you. So it's real. Our fears are real. Our phobias are real. And sometimes we brush them under the carpet because we can. We just avoid the situation. But the situation, suddenly it shows yourself when you're in a very, very awkward situation, talking with all of your prominent surgeons, and now you're completely dysfunctional suddenly. So be aware of them and don't avoid them. Go at them head first. You can do it. So that's another bad, if you would. And I wouldn't let it bring me down again. It took me a long time to overcome it, but I did.
So you can see that was again a positive thing. You made it happen. Our conversation is going so interesting that I can prolong it for hours, but we have to end it. Right, so in the last, I want you to give some lessons to the aspiring entrepreneurs who are trying to make their way and who are thinking that they had to do some startups or they had to start some company. So what are your lessons for them?
Sure. So first of all, kudos to you. If you think you're going to incept a company, that's already a huge decision and shows a lot about you already. I would recommend sitting down very honestly and think by yourself, what is it you want? What will happen on the other side when you come out of it? And what will happen in the middle when you're in the middle of it? As best as you can. You cannot predict everything. And even write that down, that I cannot predict everything. So go at it very well aware of everything you know, and be open and aware of everything you don't know, and be open to many, many other things that you will learn. You will learn that you didn't know. Then be, like I said, open to everything that comes your way in a very calculated and filtered way. Don't let all of it go through your heart, but pause on them. Look at them as a potential teacher for you, because they are. If you look closely, they are. Be humble and seek advice. That's why we have older people and previous generations ahead of us, at least where we are. One day, God willing, if we age, we will be that older generation. However, right now, we still have other people ahead of us who have gone through life, and that's what I love about them. I love everything, many things about them, but one thing I love about older generation is that they have been through the thick of it in a different way. However, lessons are transferable. And instead of me learning the same thing my mom learned, I asked her. Learning the same thing my dad learned, I asked him. And everybody else too, all the teachers, all the previous entrepreneurs. Not that my parents are entrepreneurs, I'm talking about general terms of life. That if you have access, use it. It's a blessing. If you don't, seek it. You will find it. And supplement your lived life with their lived life lessons. And put yourself ahead in this fashion. Know about your limitations. Know when to quit. Quitting is no shame. Actually, going at it too long is a shame. So know and be dynamic about it. Write it down that this is where I succeed and this is where I will pull back, but look at it periodically, whatever that period would be for you. But periodically look at it. Am I still on track? If not, should I change my track and should I change my endpoint? That's, in a very technical term, we may call it the pivot, but that's the most obvious. There are many other small pivots that you have to do here and there. Be prepared for that. Be willing to grow in this. There's a lot of growth opportunity in building the startup, and the endpoint is not always an IPO of however many dollars per stock. It is you. The main byproduct of the startup is you and your team and all the lessons you learned. And one more thing, if I may, don't go at it for money. I know probably you're not, but maybe even subconsciously you are after that. We know more than 9 out of 10 startups fail. So don't go at it for money. Have way more motivations for doing this startup. Then you will grow and your growth will be transferable. So I hope I summarized it a little bit in some.
You did. Thank you so much, Leila, for having us. And the conversation was very good. Your insights were very good. And I'm sure the people who are watching us, they have learned a lot. And the guys who are watching, she is a complete case study of success. I can assure you, just follow her, copy-paste her steps, and you'll be successful. That is my assurance.
I appreciate the joke. Thank you very much.
No, that is not a joke. That is actually right. Everything you have said, that is perfect, right? So I'm saying it from my heart that everything you said is perfect. And there was no additions from it. Nothing to add, nothing to subtract. Okay. So that is all for now. Thank you so much for watching us. And I'm sure you'll like it. And we'll keep bringing more tech stars to your screens. Follow us and subscribe to our channel.